guys, I'm Drew Daniello, and we are here with a brand new project from Phase 5. We're going to start a podcast because it seems like that's what everyone's doing, and we want to jump on board with it. But mainly we want to do it because you guys get to see a lot of our talented athletes in brochures and photos and even videos online, but like we want to bring them in here, sit down with them, talk to them, let you kind of hear their story on how they got where they got, and understand a little bit more about them. So with that, it only made sense to bring in one of the OGs, John Akerman. If you have any board sport that you're following, you've probably heard John's name. John's been with the company for a super long time. John is a Wakesurfing world champ. John is a professional skimboarder. John's an innovator, and if it's a board and you put your feet on it, I can promise you John's good at it. So with that, let me introduce to you guys John Akerman.
What's going on, guys? Happy to be here.
So as we get started here, we'll just dive in. Like, your love is really for like all things water sports and board sports. Like, where and when did all of that kind of start for you?
Well, I just started going to the beach as a kid and growing up at the lake, and my dad wanted me to surf and water ski. That's what he moved to Florida for in college, so that's what I got to do.
That's rad.
And whether it was on the, a bass tracker or a fish and ski, wakeboarding, kneeboarding, skiing, surfing at 5 years old, and I just remember riding waves to the beach on the first day I learned and taking my face straight to the sand because I didn't know when to jump off. Fins would just hit the sand. But yeah, that was first memories of board riding, and did that before any ball sports.
Yeah.
So.
Did you play any ball sports?
Oh yeah, I played football and basketball, and was never really good at soccer. I golfed a good bit, but now everyone laughs at my golfing, but I did take golf camp for like 6 years.
Nice.
And then never played again.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you started off skimboarding, got sponsored by Zap. I mean, you've got a really cool relationship with Zap. You and Max have been super close friends for a long time. And as far as Glass Pro, like you've been with Zap and now Phase 5 like for well over probably 15 years. Tell us about that whole relationship and kind of what it means to you.
Yeah, I mean, growing up on the Gulf Coast and then going over to the East Coast to surf, surfing was the first passion, and then living on the Gulf, we wanted to skim to practice surfing, so I found skimboarding. Zap was the cool leading brand of skimboards, so if you didn't have a Zap, you weren't cool. So I bought a Zap that was probably 3 times too big for me when I was like 12 years old. And there was a bunch of local skim contests, so that's where I met Max and started competing with him in the 12 to 14, and I always thought Max was like spoiled because I knew his brothers were pros and whatnot, his family owned the company. I was like, I just want to beat Max. That's the only kid I want to beat. Kind of hated him at that time. Like, all I want to do is beat Max, and then couldn't beat him. But then became friends with him instead.
That's awesome.
And rode a different board company at the time, and then him and his brother Zach and Blake, Max invited me to join the Zap team, and that was like the coolest thing ever. And those guys became my best friends, and started skimming and traveling with them in the Zap van at the time. And Dave Scott, Zach Smets, Dave Monster Armstrong taking us young guns around to the East Coast competitions. That was pretty special.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Those are fun times. So from there, I don't want to say you transition because you're still skimboarding at a super high level, but you kind of got into the wake surf scene. I remember like the first photo shoot that you came to, and I remember the Blanton boys were with us,
Yep.
And we all jumped in one boat, and you jumped in the other boat, and they were like, man, what's up with this kid? Like, he's kind of seems like a jerk. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like, John's been kind of a part of the company. Like, I don't know him that good either right now, but like, I don't think he's a jerk. And like, it was really just kind of out of your element. You didn't know anybody there. And I remember by the end of the trip, Corbin coming up and he's like, hey man, like, hey, John's not a jerk. Like, he's pretty cool. He's just quiet. And I'm like, yeah. And Corbin's like, yeah, well, we'll work that out of him.
Well, yeah, I mean, taking it back, like I knew you as a skimboarder, and then you disappeared from the sport and went into wake surfing, and we were like, man, wake surfing is like Drew's sport to us. We didn't even know anything about wake surfing besides what you did. And then, when I came to that first shoot, I was just mad nervous. One, I was the youngest one there probably, and you guys were so established and filming and whatnot. I haven't been to like a boat, and then to have y'all's film crew was just like, you guys are doing your thing.
Yeah.
So I was definitely nervous, so that was probably what that was. I
That's
just didn't
awesome.
know what to say or even what to do at that point. I was probably nervous enough getting on the wave with like 3 boats going at the same time.
Everybody chasing and staring at you.
Yeah, for
well,
sure.
in typical fashion, I think after you rode, everybody kind of didn't have a whole lot left to say bad about you.
Oh yeah, and the Blantons were awesome.
Yeah, good crew. So your first wake surf contest, like when did you get into the competitive side of the sport?
So you invited Dave Scott, Max, and I to Wakesurf Nationals that it was at the time at Lake Weir in Ocala, Florida.
Right.
If you don't remember that, and didn't even know. I think that was my first time behind a proper wake boat because I had been towing behind boats, but never like a real ballasted wake-shaped wave. And yeah, I just remember you handing me the best board that you thought would be good and going after it. And I just remember not even being able to do like a 3-shove because I was riding like a pretty big fin at the time, and I'd never ridden a board with a fin at all.
Right. Oh yeah.
So I thought I was going to get out there and rock it, and I had a fin on my board, and I just couldn't even do like a 3-shove at the time. But I did do a good big spin. I think everyone was like, "Whoa, you did a like pretty good big spin."
Yeah,
I was like,
that's rad.
I was stoked with that.
That was a fun event. I already remember that. So you go from that, like, so you jump in to nationals, and that was probably like 11 or 12, 2011,
It was
12, I
2012
think, 2012,
nationals,
yeah. And then we went to Callaway with nationals after that,
Yep.
I think. So from there, like, fast forward 5 years later, like, you're in Utah at the World Championships and, like, bring the title back to Phase 5.
Yeah.
Like, tell us about that, like, whole event, how you were feeling, and just, like, what you were thinking.
Yeah, I mean, going from, I finally got on my finless board, right, after my first wake surf experience, and then I started doing the tour for a while. But I think it did take a little while for the judging to get used to my type of riding. You know, most people are still riding fins. That was well before 2018, but like it took me a while to get to that level. It wasn't like 2012 happened and then I was the world champion in 2013. Right. So it took a little while, you know. I think my riding style was a little different than what had been going on at that time. And yeah, it took me until 2012. I did have like 3 years that were close. I think I got second and 2/3 at Worlds before I finally won it. So yeah, it was a grind for sure. It didn't come easy or fast, you know, for sure.
And I think, like, you know, you're talking about your style of riding, and it's cool, like, when I was into it, it was more like, let's go big and do, you know, like, tricks above the wave. Mm-hmm. And then it went through this weird period where, like, everything was, like, I think it was probably the start of, like, the people riding finless, and it was more like, I can do a 5-shove, but I'm going to do it, like, just barely above the wave. And then I feel like you've kind of been the one that really pushed like the finless riding, but like nobody should ever mention that it's not proper because you don't have a fin on because you still go big.
Well, it was the holding it switch that was the thing. So when you were fin skimming, and it wasn't like nowadays where one fin is the fin. It was like people riding like 2-inch fins and like maybe 3 1-inch fins. So it was like holding it switch after a big spin was like everything. And so when I came in finless, I'd do like a big spin and revert it out into a frontside big spin, and they were like, well, that's not as hard because you didn't hold it switch. But at that time, it was like the beginning of comboing tricks together and linking them, where before you only had to do a few tricks and hold them clean, which I think is something to be said about today's riding, is like there's just so much bam, bam, bam.
Right.
You know, so it'd be cool now to see it go full circle, and maybe we should get like an easy or a happy medium mix of the both.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think, you know, if you're doing a switch or you're doing a big spin and you can land and hold it switch, like I do agree, like there's something for that. But then, you know, there's guys like Jet and Sean and even yourself, like watching someone do a big spin and land and then front sit, big spin out and then 3-shove right out, like.
Yeah, I just think maybe, you know, now it's like a game of who can do how many tricks almost, where it's like, you don't need to hold it switch to be good, but maybe just bring some of the substance back of a big trick, you know, while linking combos, you know, but not bringing like the whole hold it switch thing is everything.
Right, yeah. No, a good, like you said, a good mix of both of them, definitely. So 2018, you win the World Wakesurf Championship. Pretty big year for you. Like, that was the year that your first pro model hits the market. We have the MVP skim style board. We sell them with a fin. So you probably have a stack of fins somewhere, so every time you get a new board, you just kind of add it to the stack.
Yep.
But let's, the MVP, like what was that like when Max was like, hey man, like let's do this, like let's get a John Akerman skimboard in the line here?
Yeah, it was sick because it kind of happened all at the right time, Got my board, and I think that's really what empowered me to go really big that year and really focus and try to get that world title. I just remember before that event, though, the year before I thought I won, and I didn't. So I was like, that next year I was standing on the cliff at Ogden, and I was just like, I don't even really care what happens. I'm just going to go ride good and ride my best, and it was the year for sure. So
That's
just
awesome.
all happened at the right time, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and now, so we had the MVP, and now over, 18 to 26, so we're talking 8 years. We're on version 4 of the MVP, right? You have the Ahi surf style board, and then brand new this year, you have the Sensei. So 2 surf styles and the skim style. A lot of people know you as a skimboarder. Tell us a little bit about the surf side of things.
Yeah, I think, I've always loved surfing behind the boats, but I think, dating back to 2013 till now, a lot's changed on the waves. So when they weren't quite as big and the speed of the waves weren't as fast, the surfing, I felt kind of maxed out with the tricks that I could do, so I wasn't really that stoked on progressing. I do it casually when I got ready to change it up, but I think now the waves have gotten so much bigger that I've gotten super motivated on surf. And as you can tell, like these last 2 years, I've done about 50-50 skim and surf. But I'm having so much fun on the surf, I think, too, because I've been known for skimming. So kind of always like to reinvent myself and change it up. So I'm hyped on the Sensei. Oh, he's one of the greatest of all time for, beginner to intermediate and even advanced. But I came up with the Sensei to try to bring something new and more advanced to the table for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, given wakes are getting bigger, they're steeper, they're faster. So I feel like you're kind of the first guy to embrace that and kind of shape, the Sensei that's behind me here, like kind of geared towards somebody who wants to ride a big steep wave, right?
Yeah, I think it was time, I noticed this bright idea came to mind. I'm just like, I haven't changed the width of my board since 2018, skim or surf. The Ahi and the MVP had stayed about the same width. I've done some nose and tail changes, but in ocean surfing, you could ride a different board every time you go to the beach, depending on the wave height or wave size, steepness, So I was like, just had an epiphany. I'm like, why haven't I changed my dimensions? Shape and stuff is cool, but so much has changed from shapes and whatnot. So.
Yeah, and it's as you design boards and stuff, like you learn, like little tiny changes make big differences out on the water. So from there, you also have a foil board for 2026. And I would say from our standpoint, like when if anybody comes to me and they're like, hey, I'm looking at this foil, like what do you think? I'm always like, oh, hang on one second, like text John, like.
Yeah.
So you've really embraced this whole foil thing, and I've been fortunate enough to kind of watch you start and ride it and everything else. And like I said, like if it's a board and your feet are on it, like it's going to be impressive. But like, tell me about that venture. Like when the foiling came along, what you thought, like how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, the foiling was cool just because it added another sport to the boat. How many times have you been on a wake boat and it takes 4 hours to circulate through the crew? So the foil allowed us to put a guy on the roller. Like nowadays, everyone shows up with a foil. We got 5 people foiling rollers and 1 guy surfing, so it just changed the game. We'll have like 3 guys on 1 rope holding the knots in the cord, and just doing crazy stuff, just getting more time on the water. And then now it's become like a top tier sport with the first wave backflips and airs and 360s and whatnot. Just being able to get more speed and height on airs is pretty rad with the strap stuff and even the strapless riding too. But it's just a whole nother sport that's been birthed, and now it's time to make better boards and keep track with the better wings that come out and whatnot, and follow the new technologies and trends.
Yeah, and it seems like they're pushing that pretty hard. And I know you take it from even outside of the boat. Like I know you're at the beach riding waves on it. You did some of the foil racing, I think, stuff that they did, right? Like,
yeah, done a bunch of the like foil surf racing league where it's a freestyle, traditional surf contest on foils all the way down to like racing and wing foil racing and whatnot. It's been pretty cool. So
that is cool.
Learning how to sail and use the wind has been a little challenging for sure, but it's been fun. Good journey.
So your foil board for 26 is the Chopstick. And again, I haven't really pushed into that foil thing. Like I do it just about until the foil hits my head, and then I take a break from it for a couple years. But I noticed from obviously being at the factory all the time, like our Gizmo is a pretty popular board. The Chopstick is drastically different, like kind of like what you did with your Sensei and your MVP. Like it's narrower, it's pointy nose. Like what are the advantages to that board as opposed to like a traditional bigger foil board?
Well, we've had the I had some input on the design of the Gizmo with Bob Smets and whatnot. I was the guy testing all the boards, and I really liked the round nose because of how forgiving it was off the water. But as you get better at foiling, maybe you don't need such forgiveness. You want to try to ride something that looks faster, that kind of curves to the water a little better and gives you more clearance when you're carving and whatnot. And even just having a smaller board is pretty novelty for pumping and whatnot. So that's where the Chopstick came about. And I really wanted to just get something more aggressive looking on the front end too, and like be able to lean over and have that clearance on the nose and whatnot, and then also have just a traditional squash tail board. And just a more compact size for dock starts and everything really. So wanted that more surfy traditional look with some good performance upgrades as well. And also do the gadget as well. So I designed the gadget as well as kind of just for more of easier to get up on foil board, because it's a lot thinner and a narrower skatey profile.
Right, and that one's got a nice kind of wider flat surface.
Yeah.
That's the one I've put probably the most time on.
It's kind of like a wake skate shape if you think about it, because it's got a square nose, square tail, and there's some pretty trendy boards that people were riding for airs and whatnot. So that was kind of like the skatey air board and additionally a really easy board to begin on because you can stand on it underwater instead of like having to flip the foil and the board all at once. So
definitely. So there's in the contest world, it seems that there's kind of a lot of jockeying around right now with this organization running this. We had WWS, WSWS, we've had the CWSA, we have WWA, who I think is doing a really good job. But all in all, like, what is your thoughts on like the whole state of the contest scene right now, from organization to like riders? Like, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think the sport kind of went through a lot of shifts, with all those organizations kind of figuring themselves out, or maybe realizing that they needed to let it go all under one roof, and I think that's what definitely happened this year with the WWA.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of talk about, opinions and whatnot, and I think when something changes, everyone's feels that originally. So I think it's all gonna work out the way it should, and I think it is better to have it all under one. So I think that is gonna benefit everyone. But I always like staying with the committees that have the most fun events and most organized and fair judging, and I've tested them all, and I know which ones work for me, and those are the ones I do.
Yep.
So if anyone has any questions, I would answer them about my experiences. But I really like the WWA and the Nautique events. Those are my sponsors as well. But I truthfully do love the way they're ran and the judging and whatnot. And happy to do the other events if I had time. But I truthfully enjoy I like going to all the demo events with Nautique and whatnot, and meeting new people and changing their life on the water with our boards and the boats that we ride and whatnot. So, back in 2018, I was all about competing.
Yeah.
I still love competing, but also mixing with the people that are out there on the water enjoying my boards and the boats and whatnot. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to skip my next question to keep going on that a little bit. So I've noticed, and I felt the shift as I kind of got, more and more into my career but I'm seeing it with a couple of our riders now, and I feel like, you won 2018, and when you win the world championship, you did it, right? Like you accomplished that goal, and then it seems that there's that shift where now more the clinics, the demos, and at the end of the day, that's putting you out on boats with the the average people that are going to go into shops, buy boards, buy boats, all that. How has that shift been for your competitive drive, and how do you keep like kind of feeding that little bit to keep yourself satisfied?
Well, it's all about balancing the both out perfectly, because I love the competitive side, right? But when I was younger, that was my goal. I did it, and I still compete every year at a few comps. But back then, it was all about competing, and now it's like about meeting great people. And like I said, I like designing these boards because I like to see people ride them and see how it changes their riding and their life and whatnot. And that's probably the biggest reward, is just being able to see people hop on your gear and whatnot, and then teach them how to ride and get kids out on boards and start the next generation. But yeah, I mean, I've met so many amazing people through the boats and the boards and just our industry in general that have taken me different places. So I like that aspect of it, and you still can show up to 2 or 3 events a year and still get that competitive feel and all that emotion and fun that comes with it and whatnot. But yeah, I just like mixing with cool people and meeting everybody that's in our industry and getting to go sick places, being able to travel and not be on a contest schedule and go do what you want to do. And ride with cool people and whatnot and get on the sickest boats out there and whatnot. That's what I like to do.
Yeah, and that kind of answers our next question. I was going to ask, contest or free riding. I think a lot of that depends on where you're at in your journey. And I know, like, for me, like, it's always fun to free ride. Like you said, you get to travel, you get to get on different boats, you get, some random guy that you meet, and then suddenly he's got a 53-foot Hatteras and he wants to take you out wake surfing on it. And I know you've had a lot of really cool invites. If you could narrow it down and say, like, this was my, like, #1 wake surf trip I ever got to go on, like, what was it?
I really liked Dubai last year. It was my first time, and I think it was pretty special just to go out somewhere so far. That was rad. Got to surf the Slater pool, so that was obviously a plus. I mean, getting to go to that surf pool in general was super sick, but then to go see a bunch of your Phase 5 fans along the way and meet all those people on the other side of the world was pretty rad. Hong Kong was really sick. Like you said, we were pulling up to these yachts of folks that owned Nautiques that had my pro model boards, and then an hour later we're going foiling on a massive yacht in Hong Kong in the ocean. So all those different far out adventures are definitely the better ones. But you even meet some rad people here at home and do things that you never thought you could do in your backyard. So thanks to Phase 5 and Nautique and all the rest of my sponsors for getting me there, really.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's venture off, for over 15 years, you've been, a top skimboarder in the world, obviously a top wake surfer in the world, like you're an innovator, like you're setting trends, like you're pushing the limits and all these things. And then, like, if anybody follows John sometime in the last year, you've probably opened up Instagram and been like, wow, that water's really clear and it's surrounded by concrete. Wait, John's 15 feet in the air. Like, what is going on here? Like, and now all of a sudden, like, we're winching in wake pools. Like, 1, tell me, how did we get there? And then 2, like, how rad is it?
Well, I would say how I got there was, going back to competitions, the WWA and Nautique had their events at the Barefoot Ski Ranch, which is now Wakesurf in Texas. So we'd go there for Nautique Nationals, and it was at BSR. So that was the first years that any wave pool had opened in the US. And that's actually how I got sponsored by Nautique. Was the story is they saw me ripping on the wave pool after the event on my skimboard, and I was just freaking loving it, just going crazy in that wave pool and the skim. And then that was kind of the start of the wave pools, and after that I just got inspired of how sick they were to ride on skimboards. And skimming is what I love to do. I skim behind the boat, but it all starts from skimming, so getting to go to these different wave pools have been sick. And then getting sponsored by Moto Winch was pretty rad, because then I have access to the electric winch. You can control it with your thumb on the thumb throttle. So that's when my buddy Tupat came and took some photos of me, and he's good friends with Shane Beshin, who was working with Revel Surf Park at the time. And he's like, hey man, we need to get those at the park, dude. I'm having this event. We want to do like a big air show or whatever. And I was like, dude, I'm at Lake Havasu right now. I'll be there in a week if you want me to come test this thing. And he's like, heck yeah, pull up. So happened to be my birthday and went and tested it at Revel for my birthday and had a full empty private sesh with the winches, and we kind of like did a proof of concept, and it worked so sick. Blair came out with me on that one, and Noah Beshin was there as well, and we landed some sick maneuvers. And then in October we did the Revel Ruckus event, and it was so rad. Just get to ride against some of the best surfers in the world and see their learning curve on the winch too, because you know they ride on the North Shore and do some of the craziest airs in this sport, but then to see them like get on the winch and have to operate a winch to get into the wave to do the air was pretty sick. Else. So I think I definitely had the upper hand on that one, just because I'm a master at the winch.
Right.
So that was a sick event.
That's awesome.
Just stoked to be a part of it and be able to mix in that industry too.
Yeah. So busy man, like you're on the go a lot, which is pretty rad. Recently engaged, congratulations. Wedding is soon.
April 11th.
April 11th.
It's like around the corner.
And you just informed us that birthday this weekend and the beard's got to go, huh?
Yeah. You know, I've been sporting out. I pretty much just shave and then grow until it's to this point and shave it again. But yeah, just try to, like I said, always try to reinvent myself if it's a beard or a new trick or whatever, you know, just try to keep it interesting.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So wrap things up. Like here we are, it's February 2026. Like seasons in front of us, like what can people look out for and watch from John Akerman?
Well, just looking to, you know, obviously I love competing, but I also love filming and learning new tricks and putting out sick media and whatnot, because nowadays, you know, I'm basically a free wake surfer, you know, if you want to say. I do more with the content than I do with the podiums, but at the same time, I'll still be at nationals and masters and whatever events. I'm super competitive, and to that point, if you watch my competing, I always try to do different stuff. You know, I think at every contest, I'm the only one who's doing a different line every time. So I just try to do that, and whether it gets me on the podium or not, I just have the most fun with it.
It's not a play it safe mentality.
Yeah, I just can't. I don't even have a run. You know, like I try to get a run every year, and I'm just like end up doing something different. But honestly, that's what keeps me going. You know, I think if I did the same thing, I wouldn't want to show up the next time.
Right.
You know?
Starting to get bored with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, John, thanks for sitting with us. If you guys want, you can follow John on Instagram at John Akerman.
Jakerman. Yeah.
Jakerman's on there. If you see him at an event, if you see him around, feel free to walk up and talk to John. Super cool dude, always down to help anybody that needs help with board sports.
You know it.
That's it. That's episode 1 with the OG, John Akerman.
Thank you, Drew.
Yeah, buddy.
Good hanging and talking with you, dude.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Till next time.
That's how you're going to end it?
Yeah. What do you want me to do? What do you think? Is there a better ending?
No.
Oh.
I don't know.
No, I think that's it.
We could be, yeah.
I think that's it.
He mentioned it, but like maybe just deep dive into like he did a sushi roll at Worlds,
Yeah.
and then I honestly thought he won that year.
So here's the thing.
I didn't even know
You
he
know,
won.
and for future points where you said like you wanted to elaborate, but you're trying to keep it. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Like elaborate. Like,
Well, I think what's funny about that year is like, okay, things that happened and things that didn't happen. It's like, okay, I didn't win until 2018, but I should have won. Or I already said it. I was like, I got 2 seconds and a third before I actually won. But like to the point of this sushi roll trick, they thought it wasn't that hard back then, but now there's still no one that can do it.
No one else is doing it, right? Yeah.
Like a few people have done it, but it's like not even proper.
I remember being on the beach at that contest, and when that happened, it was like the whole place blew up. And it was
Yeah, like what just happened? There's no way.
He thought for sure he won.
Yeah.
And now that I think of it, now I remember people. I remember.
Well, no, we should almost break that down because it's like, okay,
Break it down.
should Jake Castor or John Akerman won that event to this day, looking back? How many people can do a 360 body varial to this day, and then how many people can do a sushi roll to this day? So who really should have won for one
The body
trick?
varial's like a
Because that's what it was. It was like everyone,
standard.
they had really good passes, but it was between the two tricks,
That's crazy.
you know? But my trick's more of a novelty trick, so that's why I didn't get it. But to this day,
But way harder.
now amateurs can do that trick.
They didn't know how to even what to do with it.
But like amateurs are doing that.
It was a
Yeah.
real trick because
Yeah.
you know there's a lot of politics.
Well, and that's where the
It's too
WWE
far
shines.
anytime.
Like you have paid judges in the boat the whole day.
Yeah.
Like
I guess
Not saying they can't make mistakes, but it's not like
yeah.
it's not the dudes who were appointed to judge this division.
Yeah.
We're recording, so whatever else you gotta say.
No, it was just funny because the sushi roll, you know, it's like a bodyboard trick. You land on your stomach and you get
Right.
back up, but like most wake surfers can't get back up.
No.
You know, so
Most
that's where it's
most
kinda
of
funny.
them couldn't just drop down to their belly without losing the wave and get back up.
Yeah, so
Let
then it's
alone
like-
do a barrel roll.
It's surfing, so you're still surfing, but like the trick, the 360 body roll was unheard of at the time, but then like now almost every aspiring pro can do like a body reel with a 3-shove.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
different stuff now. We're like, yeah.
And I think the only other part that, like, maybe selfishly, is I know more like a lot more in depth stuff is just like I feel like we skipped a lot of time from like the skimming, like starting skimming to world title. Like it was definitely.
Mm-hmm. I think
Maybe some more
Yeah, what,
time,
we
like,
hit-
maybe,
we hit-
maybe like nurturing the part of like the progression between the one contest, the world title. You know, it's like.
Yeah,
It was
because
like-
we had talked about like the first photo shoot and all of
And I
that when
think
you
that,
got
like, that's-
started.
It was. I think it was everything was great.
And then we kind of jumped to winning. But yeah, and you even said, you know, there's a lot that happened in between there. We should have.
well, it was like I was thinking about this the other
Roll
day.
into it.
Yeah, so it was like, you know, I was an ocean skimmer pro for a long time, and I still am, like you said, still that's a passion. Wake surf all the
When
time.
you went pro as a skimmer.
But what? Yeah,
How old were you when you went pro as a skimmer?
yeah. I was 16 when I went pro skimboarding at the
Maybe
beach.
you're younger for some reason.
It felt younger. Yeah, everyone's like, oh, I just turned 16. Everyone's like, oh, he's too young to be a pro, you know. And then my first contest, I was up against Bill Bryan, and I beat him in a semifinal. I got first, he got second, and he got on the mic with Joe Bonk, who was like, oh, beginner's luck, you know, this and that. And that was after
Classic Bill
everyone.
Bryan.
I think I was the youngest kid to go pro at the time, so everyone, you know, they didn't want it to like be a snowball effect, like you had to earn your stripes or whatever. But then I did earn my stripes because I got fourth in the whole event, and I beat Beaker. in the
That's
heat.
rad. That's rad.
So,
What year was that? When would you have turned 16?
That was 2010 in
Okay.
New Jersey.
That was even before the weight stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember that
It
contest.
was way before.
That's
And,
hilarious.
Yeah, I got fourth in the whole event when everyone thought I was too young to go pro, and they were worried that like everyone was going to go pro, and you didn't have to like get
Earn your
accolades
stripe,
and
right,
earn it.
right.
Yeah.
Because before it was what you had to work your way up, then you had to win the men's division, and
Mhm.
then you were allowed to do it or whatever.
But, yeah, I probably wasn't good enough at the time, but I tried so hard because everyone said I wasn't good enough or whatever, and it just pushed me more and more to do it.
That's
and I
awesome.
did it. But then we went to Worlds, and Worlds wasn't the same. Like me and Max went to Worlds, and I always compare it to like some stuff you hear about water skiers being kind of, you know, aggressive and, you know, give you a cold shoulder when you show up to events and whatnot. So we went to Worlds, and like we thought that like everyone was gonna just like introduce themselves to us, and they was gonna be like, you know, hey, you're new to the sport, come here, and everyone's just like turning their heads. We like show up to the event, no one was talking to us, and we're just like super thrown off. And then that's
So,
At Callaway that one year, it was like.
so that would have been nationals
no, that was Las Vegas World Championships
in Vegas. So the first
we-
year they did it out there.
The only person that
Yeah.
we met Marcus Lammer in the elevator, and we just hit it off with him. It was like, wow, well, there's a few nice people here or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not that they weren't nice, but I think it was just really small and competitive back then. They didn't want new
No
people
doubt.
coming in.
Yeah.
And me and Max were the new guys, and they weren't like opening up to us like the skimboarding world was. Like you show up to a skimboard event as a newbie, and people just want to
Help
talk
you
to
out.
you.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we haven't seen you before.
Right.
What's your story? We went there, and like everyone was trying to not look at us, and you know,
Right.
seemed
And if they were
intimidated
in
or
your
something.
division, they definitely didn't want to talk to you because they were not stoked you were there, I'm sure.
And we weren't even.
I think they just thought that like you're gonna come and go like oh it's just a skimmer kid. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna come like especially the older.
I feel like you did. Did you podium that year?
No, for sure not. Didn't even
No?
podium.
I'm trying to think.
I think I was still like trying to figure out
That
the
was
wave.
the year they gave out like the absolute, like vodka bottles or something.
Oh,
for,
yeah.
If I remember right.
No,
It was
it's
like
just
one
like
of the big ones. They did like 10 grand for first place. And I remember like I think Dominic Lagasse
oh yeah.
took second. And he was so fired up, dude. That bottle was like within 5 minutes of walking off the podium, his bottle was empty.
That's hilarious. Yeah, but I think everyone thinks that like if a pro skimmer comes in or a pro surfer, they're just gonna like win no matter what. But it's like
Right.
when you see a pro surfer get on a boat wake, it's hard for them to even figure out how to stay in the wave. So I was dealing with a little bit of that. It was
Yeah.
like, I knew all the tricks, but I didn't know how
back
to
foot heavy and-
completely stay in the wave the whole
Right.
time, you know. And yeah, so it took a few years.
That's
But it was
crazy.
funny because it took us a little bit to get to know everyone. It
Yeah.
wasn't as easy as just showing up and getting to know everyone.
Well, and then I feel like from a like wake surf side too, I feel like the contest scene, and it even still seems this way, is a pretty small, tight niche of the wake surf world.
Yeah.
You know, like
Not especially as like 4 tours.
I think it was just way more.
Whatever it is.
yeah,
I think it was more competitive with everyone back then. Like even all the AMs like were super competitive. Where nowadays it's like, you know, the kids coming up and the parents, you know,
They're all
goofing
friends and
around
hanging
friends
out.
and stuff. Where back
Yeah.
then it was just like
yep,
motocross families, you know, just like
for sure.
super serious. So it's kind of mellowed out now, which
It was
is
more
nice. but-
the mind game against each other the whole
Yeah.
time.
And the protests were crazy back then, even though they still can be today. But back then it was just like,
testing every time.
yeah. I mean, the protesting is pretty funny,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
in the younger divisions. Like I drive for the junior men's or the amateurs or open and stuff, and you're just
Right.
like, dude, look, these kids are 14 years old. They don't, you
right,
know,
right.
you got to learn to lose. You
Yeah.
know, if you
That
think
was-
I won every comp,
I can remember early on days when
Here? Yeah, I'm from here.
some of our riders would ask about protesting, and I always just said, look, like, if you protest and let's say you win the women's amateur division right now, like, you're still going home and going to school Monday. Like,
Yeah.
don't be the person that goes and does that. Right, you become that person. Like, don't be that person.
And
no
I will
doubt.
say, like, being behind the scenes is like, when there's always someone who's gonna protest, like, it definitely doesn't help your
No,
coolness
no.
or your
no.
like, it's gonna help you if you're a better sport most of the
Yeah,
time, for sure.
yeah.
For any of the kids listening, is like, nobody wants you to be that guy that protests every time. And
Right.
if it's your parents doing it for you, then maybe tell them to tone
Maybe
down
tell
a
them
little
not to
bit.
do it. Yes, yes.
Because
Yeah, maybe a career highlight is I've never, and I don't think you've ever protested any.
yeah, I protested a few times, but for the most part, it's like you kind of know, you know.
Right,
And if you're protesting, then it's got to be like a major
Yeah.
mess up on
Yeah.
their behalf.
right.
But
And I guess, I mean, when it becomes like podium or no podium in a pro division, I mean, because it's how you're making, you know, you're making a living doing it, and there's money involved. So like that's a little bit different than like,
mhm.
like you said, like the boys division or the amateur or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
like
yeah,
kind of crazy.
yeah. Even when it was like the world champion battle with Jay Castor and the 360 body varial and the sushi roll, I don't even think like it was what it was. You know, I don't even
Right.
think I wanted to protest. I think
Right.
Max protested.
Max,
honestly, is what it was. I was just like, well, it's what the judges thought, and that's still what it is today. Like, people
Yeah.
think that they can just protest and it's going to change. It's like, it's still what the judges thought was cool and what was better and harder
Right.
and looked better. So,
Yeah,
doesn't matter what trick was landed.
crazy.
Sweet.
Oh, good
well, we can just
times.
get out this too much. What's going
Sub
on?
1.5 cut.
Perfect.
Yep. Sweet.
Perfect.
Well, until next time.